Welcome, Robert.
Well, many thanks, and great to have the invitation to come and speak to you today from Renew and at the Toowoomba EV Expo, so thank you very much. I just want to know, how many people were at the previous speaker's presentation? Very inspirational. You're going to get e-bikes now? Yeah? Well, don't worry, we're not too worried about how you charge them, okay? It's EVs, it's the big stuff that we're really worried about, or interested in, let's put it that way. So, yes, look, I'm here today really to maybe take a little bit more detail around energy and charging your EVs, and maybe just give a bit of a different spin of how the energy networks are looking at it, and necessarily, as Lorraine said, my job, how do we make the two work together, where customers and network can actually work together and get a far better outcome for everybody. So, EQL networks powering EVs. Very quickly, just what I want to go through today will be, why is EQL, or Energy Queensland, interested in electric vehicles? What do we know about them? Just a bit of a historical view and where we are today. And what questions we think you should be asking when buying an EV. And it's only because of all the research that we're doing, going, there's a lot out there that people don't know about. We want to become maybe an information provider, along with all the other groups that are out there, so you can get some unbiased views and opinions. Then look at some EV charging specifically, what you can do at home and what you can do away and what that looks like, and necessarily how you manage your EV. Now I think your EV battery, I think Simone did a little bit of that earlier today, a little bit of a refresher there for you as well. And then lastly, what the market's calling vehicle to X. What on earth does that mean? Well, vehicle to load, vehicle to home, and vehicle to grid. You might have heard those terms. I've just got a bit of a slide at the end just to give you a bit of a view of what that actually means. And necessarily maybe give me some questions at the end if you want to know a bit more about them. So, why are we interested in electric vehicles as Energy Queensland? Well, our job is to deliver you safe and reliable power to suit your lifestyles. That's our job, that's what we're out there to do. And we realise that electric vehicles, they're going to add an enormous amount of demand and energy on our network that we need to be cognizant of and make sure that we don't fall short. So, it's all about how we supply power to your EV. So, what do we know about EVs today? Demand. How much is it going to need at any point in time immediately? And that's what we call about demand management, or demand there. And so, just to give a context, your standard hot water system in a house can be anywhere between 1.8 and 3.6 kilowatts in actual instantaneous load. At any one time, bang, that's what it could be taking. Large split system air conditioner, anywhere up to 2 kilowatts. And a ducted air conditioning system, which does your whole house with one unit, anywhere up to sort of 5 kilowatts. So that's the sort of framing. Now an EV on a standard 10 amp socket or a 15 amp socket can do anywhere between 2.4 and 3.6 kilowatts instantaneously. So that's getting up very much towards the high end of a hot water system. And if you all know that you might have your hot water system on a load control or an economy tariff, we're interested in anything like that. So EVs fit straight into that bucket for us. Then if you decide you're going to be really good and get yourself an actually dedicated EV charger and then go 3-phase, have a wall charge, you can go up to 22 kilowatts. So again, just framing that, at 22 kilowatts, if you use that for 1 hour, that'll give you the same energy in kilowatt hours for the whole house in one day at the very top end. So just frames how electric vehicle is going to be really important, not only to you as customers, but also to us as a network in making sure that we can supply that power to you. So, what do you want to look for when buying a new car? Well, nothing different from anything you do today. Your safety ratings, how many seats has it got, what features does it have, the optional extras, servicing needs and costs, which are probably arbitrarily a lot better than your normal ICE vehicle. There's a lot less fewer moving parts, essentially. What warranties? Some of you might be, has it got the right colour that I want? But also, and a lot of topic that's been mooted is it going to have enough opportunity to tow what I have? I've got a trailer, I've got my caravan, I've got my boat. Is it going to be able to tow? So those are the sorts of things that you ask normally anyway for a normal car. The things we think you might be interested in, which really sort of gets glossed over that we found with our research, is asking a few more questions. And they really get into the use of that electric vehicle, is it going to be suitable for you? So the questions that we think, through some research we've asked is, you should be asking yourself, how far do you drive regularly? Is the 40 kilometre commute really your style of driving? Is that what you do every day? Or do you need something that's a bit longer? We know of a customer who's bought a vehicle that does about 250 kilometres on a full charge, and they're not particularly happy because they've suddenly really realised that their average commute or daily trips are around about 200 kilometres. So when they get to the end of their trip, they've got to find somewhere to charge fast so they can come back again. So it's all about understanding what your usage is going to be. And there is a real association and allied with what the size of the battery is. Even today, the size of battery is generally good indicator or proxy for the distance you're going to get. And they are the most expensive part of a car. So in the EV world, the more you spend, generally the bigger you're going to get with regards to your range. Then the second question is, well, okay, as per that example I gave before, I'm going to need to charge really fast when I get to my destination and to come back. What are the charging rates of those EVs? AC, so alternating current, which is what you generally get at home, or DC, which are the fast chargers that are out on the streets, in the petrol stations and gas stations that you see. Then what charging options do I have? And this is where hopefully I'll be giving a bit more detail around the charging options that you do have, both at home and away. And there's quite a few, it's interesting, and quite a few options that you do have. So, but what I'll do again, I'll do a bit of a framing here for you at the moment. I'm going to say, how much does an EV cost to run on that 40 kilometre trip? So this is just that graphical view again, just a reminder of the blues are all the sorts of things you might see in your house today. It's your hot water system, your pool, ducted air conditioning systems, and the amount of instantaneous load they have. And then just showing you in the browns what EVs might look like with a 10 amp, 15 amp or a 22 kilowatt charger. So you can see that 22, that's phenomenal. That's really quite frightening. But as customers, if you want that, you should have one. So, ins and outs of charging at home. So there's your 40 kilometre trip. This is where my animation doesn't work. Little green colours when I go all the way across the screen. But ultimately, 40 kilometres, let's just make a bit of a comparison about what that might mean for petrol or gas, ICE vehicle versus your electric vehicle. And it's really quite plain to see. And I've just made some assumptions, and you can work around those and work them up yourself. It's really not too difficult. But I've said, let's pretend that in your daily commute, it's 10 litres per 100 kilometres is your average sort of urban cycle. And that the charge you get at home for plugging something in and 10 amp plug is 22 cents a kilowatt hour. Those are the assumptions we've made. So that travelling 40 kilometres, we use about 4 litres. $1.50, it's $1.50 down in Brisbane where I come from. It's $1.50 up here at the moment, or just come down a bit recently. Pretty blooming expensive. About that. So I'm about right. Yeah, it's on its way down again. I think it's the moment in the cycle. $6 to do your 40 kilometre commute. Now, you can give or take a bit, slightly better efficiencies on prices going down a bit. 10 kilowatt hours a day at 22 cents a kilowatt hour, $2.20. I mean, that is way ahead of the game. An EV suddenly becomes an extremely exciting proposition from the cost to charge your vehicle and do your trips. So that's all well and good. Need to know a bit more now. So a bit more graphical representation around those types of connections that I was talking about. So a 10 amp plug, your standard 10 amp plug, which if you were here with Simone's presentation, which house doesn't have a 10 amp plug, hopefully relatively close by to either a garage or carport that they could charge their vehicle with. 10 amp plug, you can see for an 8-hour charging period, this is just indicative, but it's really darn close, you're going to add over 8 hours 76 kilometres back into your battery. So it does your 40 kilometre commute, no problem at all. So if you're charging, got 8 hours during the daytime or 8 hours overnight to do it, you're going to manage quite happily on a 10 amp plug to manage your travels every day. But you might decide you want to go to a 15 amp plug, which is, I don't know if you know, but a 15 amp plug's got a slightly bigger, I think there's a bit of a face, the nose is bigger, basically. That's, I think that's your earth wire. And that takes you to 115 kilometres if you're over the 8-hour period. Just gives that a little bit extra oomph over that period of time. That might be something. And really, what that means is maybe there's a small cost of maybe changing your plug out from a 10 amp plug to a 15 amp plug. You might have to get a sparky to come and do that if you haven't got one already. But that gives you that extra distance for a very small cost. Then we start getting into I need a wall charger, and there we go. That can charge at around 6 kilowatts per hour, and you can get 245 kilometres into your battery over an 8-hour period. So that's really starting to pull some muscle. That's good stuff. And from a network point of view, yeah, look, that's great, as long as we know that we can put that energy into your car. Thing is, that will have a cost to it. So you'll have to, the EVSC, which is the electric vehicle standard equipment, that's your dedicated charger, and you're going to have an install cost on that as well. But you're going to be able to get some fantastic energy through that and charge your vehicle up. And if it's one of the smaller vehicles, like a Nissan Leaf, let's say, that's pretty much a full charge on the battery from zero. So that's going some. Do need to realise though that if it is a smaller battery, 245 kilometres is maybe potentially irrelevant, because it maybe won't have the capacity to do 145 in the battery. But nonetheless, that shows you the sort of opportunity you have. And then lastly but not leastly, the big boy, 22 kilowatts, 3-phase dedicated charger. Again, you're going to have to buy your EVSC, so your dedicated charger, going to have to be installed. And if you don't already have 3-phase in your home, you're going to have that connected as well. And that comes from your posts or from your underground supply at the side of your house. And so that's going to add an additional cost. But you're going to get up to 384 kilometres that you can put back into your EV over an 8-hour period. So that's home charging, pretty much. However, there is a little bit now to give you the network spin, and the fact that that's wonderful for you, and this is potentially also some extra message that's going to be wonderful for you as well. If you've got solar, the best time of day to charge, and this, again, no rocket science, is when the solar is actually producing on your rooftop. So if you have the opportunity to charge between the hours of, let's say, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, all the way through to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, then that's going to do you a power of good with regards to the cheapest power you're ever going to get. And that's even saying it even if you're on the 44-cent solar feed-in tariff that I think died about several years ago, but if you're still on it, it's still cheaper to lose the export value than it is to fill an ICE vehicle, an internal combustion engine vehicle, with your solar. So that really helps us out from a network point of view, because there's probably been a lot of news recently about how much solar is thrown back into the network during the daytime. For a network that's only ever designed to push it out to you, we're getting it back. And so the more opportunity that customers can use the energy that they're producing in their home at the time it's being produced, or store it in their vehicle, that's fantastic news for us, and it's the cheapest energy you're going to get as well. The other thing as well is, well, what if you don't have rooftop solar? What are your options there? Well, you've got two options that are directly associated for yourself, which are, can you connect to a load control, or what we call load control, but energy economy or night rate tariff. Those are the ones where sometime during the day there'll be some outage from our point of view. We'll turn the energy off for 5 or 6 hours, or 3 or 4 hours, which is what we do with your hot water. It's exactly the same, but we guarantee you a lower rate for that privilege of being able to manage energy when we need to. Don't forget, you can still do that in a 15 amp plug, and I think you saw it with EVs and I think you can still do that on a 15 amp plug without having to have it hardwired. But again, you're going to get up to 115 kilometres for a charge there for a discounted rate. Or you can find a time of use tariff that suits you, that when you know when you can charge your EV, where the cheap rates are, and you know that's the time you can charge, that might suit you as well. So those are some of the options you have. But again, we still get down to, if you can charge during the day, that is a wonderful thing, because it can reduce the pressure on the network and all the solar that's being produced. You can't hear that at all? Okay, sorry. And for us also, it means that if you're charging during the daytime, it means that the opportunity of charging in that green peak, which is our traditional network peak of when, certainly in the summertime, when everybody's got their air conditioning on and they all come home from school or work about the same time, chuck the air conditioning on, chuck the cooker on, that's our network peak. If we can avoid adding any EV charging during those times, that'll be fantastic. So again, daytime charging, or where the blue is, overnight charging, is really, really good, Obviously, daytime charging is when most of the renewables are on the network, and it's actually the cleanest energy that you'll be able to charge with as well. So if you've got a bit of a sustainability bent view, that's the way to go as well. So that's home charging. What about away charging? Well, there's a few options available for you which have some different value propositions. The stuff that's not in boxes, the 4 and the 7, those are the 4 kilometres or 7 kilometres in a 10-minute charge. This is a presentation done by Tritium, who do fast charges. They do a lot of fast charges that you'll see out on the streets and at fast charging stations. And the blue and the red are really the interesting ones here. The ones in blue box, the red box. So the blue box is the sort of thing where you'll see 22 kilometres you'll be able to add in a 10-minute charge. So this is away charging. It's still potentially DC charging, or AC charging. But you'll generally find those, they'll add 22 kilometres to your, in a 10-minute period. The really super fast charging are the 50 kilowatt charger, which will be DC, and the 350 kilowatt charger. These are the ones you're going to find in dedicated charging stations along the road. So that's an awful lot of energy. In 10 minutes, if your car can take that amount of energy in a hit, you can add 343 kilometres in a 10-minute park. Just enough time to get a cup of coffee and a muffin or do whatever you need to do. So that's all well and good. Where am I going to find those chargers away from home? And they generally fall into 2 brackets. What we've called destination charging, where it's where you end up. That's where you're going to be, and you're going to spend some time there. And that can be hotels that are starting to put these in, EV charging stations in, and shopping centres. And there are certainly a couple of shopping centres around in Toowoomba that already have EV chargers as well. Some of them are free, some of them you'll be charged for, but by and large they're free because they know when you get there you're probably going to be spending money with them anyway, whether it's on a dinner, hotel, accommodation, whatever, or in a shopping centre. It's still your first 3 hours free. You can get charging for free as well. And then of course on the road there'll be the dedicated charging stations. These are generally the real fast ones, 50 to 350 kilowatt DC, so direct current, and that's where you're going to get your almost 50 kilometres up to 353 kilometres in 10 minutes. Because that's when you're on the road, you want to keep on cracking, you don't want to be waiting around to charge. But in that scenario, you generally have to have already signed up to a platform, a charging platform. So companies like ChargeFox or whatever, you'll need to generally have an account so that you can pay with your credit card or prepay. So I would advise, and Simone from the very early, the first presentation today, showed you a map of all the plug share places. There are literally hundreds of these places where you can charge your vehicles. They'll all be different. Some will be destination, some will be on road, and the colour coding and plug share gives you the type of plug and the speed that you'll be able to charge at. So if you need to plan a trip and you're going away, it's going to be a long distance, plug share is a great resource for planning a trip if your car doesn't actually do it itself. Sometimes there are some cars that are already programmed whereby they know where the charging stations are. You plot your route and it'll then tell you when to stop and where to stop, so you're not going to be finding yourself without any battery power along your journey. And I think that's going to become more and more, that's going to become integrated into the vehicles anyway. Managing your EV, battery, really important. You want to make sure that thing is going to last as long as you possibly can. So in our research and talking to the manufacturers, there are some golden rules as far as we're concerned, and hopefully they work for you too. How often should you plug in your EV to charge your battery? Well, it is totally up to you. It is an absolute, anytime you want to, you can do it. So top up daily, or if you want to use half your battery and only do it once a week, maybe on Saturdays and Sundays when you know you can use the solar because you're away during the week, not a problem. That's a fine, and your battery should be okay with that. Does it damage your EV battery to go to almost zero charge? That's something that's going to get most people sweating, I'd imagine, especially if you're on a long trip. No, it's not going to damage your battery because your battery management system in your EV will generally keep some sort of charge in there to protect it. But of course, there's something you don't want to get to. So avoid if you can. Should I always fully charge my battery? So do I need to go 100% all the time? Well, occasionally yes. So if you are doing that long trip and that night before you're going to get prepared, go to 100%. But general rule of thumb is you shouldn't be doing that on a regular basis. It will shorten the battery life. And certainly talking to the manufacturers, they generally like to think that about 80% is probably a good regular top-up charge. Don't go beyond that if you don't need to. That's really where the battery maintains itself very well and you're not going to damage it particularly. And then lastly but not leastly, we're talking about those wonderful fast chargers where you can get 350 kilometres in 10 minutes. Well, shall I use that all the time then? You know, that sounds great to me. Well, it's like everything in moderation. Just like fast food, it's fantastic, really convenient, can be quite cheap, but it isn't something you do all the time, or shouldn't do. Exactly the same with fast charging, is that occasionally, or a long trip, not a worry at all, but it's not the sort of thing you should do all the time. It will shorten the life of the battery and reduce its capacity more quickly than it will do. And having said that though, you know, battery lives are getting extremely good these times. You know, we've got Tesla, you know, talking about lifetime warranty on the batteries, you know, for degradation. So as battery technology changes, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that and see how people's views change. Now lastly but not leastly, vehicle to X, which can be, sometimes you might see V2X, so it's V2L, V2H or V2G is the sort of thing you'll see in articles being written about. What does it mean? Well, really all it means is, can I use the energy that I've stored in my electric vehicle's battery for something else entirely? Can I actually use it for non-motive reasons? Well, yes. Cars are coming a long way. Yes, you can do that. Now, the most recent one that people have been talking about, funny enough, is vehicle to load. A vehicle to load just means any electrical appliance that you might want to charge up. And cars are now starting to come, or you'll start seeing cars with a standard GPO, a general power outlet. So a 10 amp plug, you'll start seeing them in cars. So going to be really useful for tradies. I think Ford has said that their F-150 is going to come with all the whistles and stops, and a couple of charging points, so all the traders can charge up all their tools, you know, as they go. Of course, if you're a camper, fantastic. Charge up you can keep your fridge going, get your lights set up, and have your vehicle as basically your battery source or your energy source camping. So really very, very flexible, and really probably going to be really very cheap. Vehicle to home, or the grid, is a little bit of a different paradigm. If you are going to buy a dedicated charger for your home, it's generally only one, well, it is only one way at the moment. You can only push energy into your EV. If you want to push it the other way, you're going to need what's called a bi-directional charger. And they're sort of on the cusp of coming. They're not quite here yet. They're not necessarily approved to be connected to the network yet. But companies like Nissan and Mitsubishi are going to be the first cabs off the rank, if you pardon the pun, of bringing in bi-directional chargers where you can take your EV and say, well, actually, I want to, this evening, because prices are really... Every night between 4 and 8, I'm going to use my battery and my EV to use in my home, because I've effectively charged it maybe for free during the day, I can use it at night. So it's almost like using your EV as a static battery, like a Tesla Powerwall. Then we've got those people who want to make money from their battery as well, and that's when you want to use vehicle to grid. So vehicle to grid, exactly the same, bi-directional charger, and you can send it back through your meter and back into the grid because someone's actually saying, hey, can I borrow that energy, or can I buy that energy off you? And as long as you're happy to accept the terms, yes, you can earn a financial reward for doing that. Now that's not necessarily going to happen all the time, but if you're connected to the grid and you have a bi-directional charger, that opportunity is going to be potentially available to you in the not too distant future, maybe a year or so's time. The thing is, it's going to be, you can imagine how expensive it's going to be to buy one of those chargers. So something to look out for again, and something to maybe consider when they are available is that what you want to do with the power that's in your electric vehicle? How confident are you that maybe you can suck some of the energy out during night time, during evening time, and then put it back overnight to give you the energy that you need for the rest of the day tomorrow? So that's really the presentation from me today. But of course, you know, it's all well and good giving that information now. What if you want to go away and do some of your own research? Well, I've given you, there are 4 major areas that I think are useful for you in trying to find your own research. Firstly, come to the Ergon or NGX websites or Queensland Transport. especially Queensland Transport, if you want to find out what the slight reductions are in the rego and your stamp duty when you buy an EV. But we've got a whole series of pages on electric vehicles, the benefits of them, whatever, what you need to look out for, questions to ask. So really, everything that's in here is going to be on those websites, and you can just take your time, obviously, to read those. There's obviously electric vehicle associations, so like the AEVA, who are here today, go and talk to them. They've got obviously vast amount of experience and knowledge, all their members who are prepared to show you their cars and things like that, so a great resource there. Also, there are plenty of magazines coming out now, news articles online around EVs and EV stories. Again, if all you need to do and put in the search bar is EV Online Magazines Australia, and you'll find a whole raft of them come available. There are 2 or 3 that are really good, top-notch ones, and they're always putting articles out on a regular daily basis. And then, of course, lastly but not leastly is, well, what about go and do a test drive? Actually go and feel one under the feet, so to speak. And again, you can actually type in EV Test Drive Australia, and there are groups that are dedicated. It might cost you, but they're dedicated to say, okay, well, I've got an EV and I'm happy to show you how one drives and give you an opportunity to do a test drive. EV Expos, such as today, then of course also dealerships as well. So the dealerships are having a little bit of trouble maybe getting out of Brisbane, but hopefully they'll be coming up to regional Queensland soon. There might be some here now, I must admit I'm not aware, but probably are. Actually Nissan is probably here. I think they'll probably see EVs up here too. Go and have a test drive. Go and find out what it's like and see what they say about EVs and find out how nice they are to drive. I've driven up in one today. It's the first time I've done a long drive in one from Brisbane. I'm down to 28% on the battery, so I've got to find somewhere else I'm not going to get home. I will be able to recharge down the hill though, so that's all right, down the range. But ultimately, yeah, it's a very exciting opportunity for you as customers, whether you've got an EV now or you're thinking about one. And it's a really exciting time for us as well, because the opportunity for us to ensure that we're able to supply you with your energy needs with solar and storage and everything that's going on, it's a very exciting time. And I think that by and large, the future is looking really, really exciting and really great for all of us. So what I can say is thank you for the opportunity of telling a little bit more about the network world and how we think of things. I don't know if you've got any time for questions at all, Ryan?
No,
I've done it.
Unfortunately, we haven't, Rob. Sorry.
I've overcooked it. Sorry.
Guys, can I get you to give Rob a big round of applause?